Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here and welcome back to another YouTube video on the channel. And today guys, here we are to do our AFL 2022 Finals Week 2 or the semi-finals AFL 2022 round preview. So semi-final, Week 2 of finals, whatever you want to call it, preview coming up right here. On the channel. But of course, before we go ahead and start any preview, of course we go back and look at the previous week of footy, and it was a pretty good one, of course, as I said in the review. If you haven't gone ahead and watched that, feel free to go ahead, because I do a more in-depth review of the games, and I actually did match reviews for all of these games. So if you want to go see an even deeper review, go ahead, watch that. Of course, there'll be match reviews for every game of the 2022 AFL Final Series on my channel. But anyway, last week, Brisbane got over Richmond by 2 points in an absolute thriller of an elimination final Thursday night at the Gabba. I said the biggest winning margin of the weekend was 22 points. That's exactly what happened on Friday night between Melbourne and Sydney. Sydney got the job done by 22, and I did say this, and I will state it again. Sydney's pressure was elite. If you bring the pressure, make Melbourne get the ball off the ground, that's going to make things a lot easier. That's the blueprint to beat them. Sydney did it. They did it back in round 12, and we saw Carlton a couple of rounds ago, 22, I think it was, successfully pull that off as well. And they almost beat Melbourne as well. So that's how you beat Melbourne. Pressure, ground ball and all that. And then you can put pressure on them, and they're not very good under that sort of pressure. They like to mark the ball, Melbourne. So Sydney did a really good job there with that win. As I said, biggest win of the weekend. Then the Cats got over the Pies by 6 points in a cracker of a qualifying final. Before then, the Dockers managed to come back from 41 points down to beat the Dogs by 13 in the elimination final. Now, of course, Geelong and Sydney have already booked spots in the preliminary finals. And, of course, the fixture is out for that too. And we have the Cats taking on the winner of Melbourne versus Brisbane on Friday night. Before then, the winner of the Pies and the Dockers will go on to play Sydney at the SCG on Saturday afternoon footy. So there's some really big games coming up here. This is going to be a short video, and I do understand that. It's going to be a bit like extended tipping as we do every week. So here we go again for the AFL 2022 semi-final. We've done a preview for every round. So here we go. Let's kick it off. Alright, so the weekend will be starting with Melbourne versus Brisbane. A massive semi-final on Friday night. 2nd versus 6th. MCG hoodoo. Brisbane have an MCG hoodoo. We all know that. And they'll be looking to break it right here for sure, of course. A game against the Cats at the MCG on Friday night is what is up for grabs for the winner of this one. And it's a massive contest between these two sides, and both times these two sides have played this year, Melbourne have absolutely destroyed Brisbane. Back in round 15, Melbourne destroyed Brisbane at the MCG, and just a couple of weeks ago in round 23, Melbourne destroyed Brisbane at the Gabba. So for Brisbane, the run against Melbourne is not looking great if you're a Brisbane fan, and if you're a Melbourne fan, it is looking very, very nice, and they'll be looking to add to that. Melbourne, they could easily win this game by a mammoth margin. Brisbane, they could easily come to fight as well. Don't know how this one's going to play out. Brisbane, you sometimes never know with them. They're a better regular season side than the final side. They always drop off in finals. They did beat the Tigers last week by 2 points. Pretty tough. And the D's, they just lost it in that third quarter and couldn't put up any fight in the last. So really big this week. If Brisbane want to win, what they got to do is they got to do what Sydney did. You got to watch what Sydney did to Melbourne last week. You got to make sure that Melbourne don't take marks. Yes, you may have McStay and Danaher and Hipwood down there, but their role should be to get the ball to ground. So then that means, you've got like plenty McCluggage, Lyons, Cameron, Bailey, Coleman, that can all go and do some sort of pressure act. They can tackle, or even better, they can go and get the ball, and they're all capable of kicking 50 metres, an accurate shot at goal to kick the goal. So I can't see why Brisbane can't do what Sydney did last week, and if they do that, they will beat Melbourne. They will 100% beat Melbourne if they did what Sydney did last week. But if they play to Melbourne's strengths and go, right, we're going to set down a long bomb down the line, McStay, Hipwood, Danaher, do your best to mark, it's not going to happen because May, Lever and Gawn will get you every single time. So you've got to be really careful of what you do there. And if you are going to long bomb kick, which is probably what you got to do, you got to get the ball to ground. That's got to be the main priorities. You got to get that ball to ground because Melbourne will fumble under pressure. So, and then obviously tackling pressure has to be good as well. So Brisbane, their key this week is bringing the pressure. That's how you'll beat Melbourne. You know, for Melbourne, they love to take marks. So pretty much, they've just got to make sure that Brisbane are feeding them exactly what they want. They want to make sure that Brisbane are bombing it long, straight down to a massive 6-on-6 or 5-on-5 or 4-on-4 or even 3-on-3. And then Melbourne can take an easy intercept mark and then send it back up their ground and absolutely destroy them. Now, I think that is exactly what's going to happen. I reckon Brisbane are just going to be spoon-feeding Melbourne the whole game. I reckon they're just going to be bombing it long down the line, not doing what Sydney did, not having a look at what they did. They're just going to be playing bomb it down the line and let May, Corn and Lever intercept. And I've said Melbourne by 45 for this first game. So now to the second game between Collingwood and Fremantle. Saturday night footy at the MCG. Last week, we witnessed one of the best finals comebacks ever. Fremantle came back from 41 points down versus the Western Bulldogs to secure a massive win. Some teams would have just given up at that point, but not Fremantle. They kept on going. Of course, for champ David Mundy, his last win at Optus Stadium, because of course they will not be returning there this season, because if they win this game versus Collingwood, they'll be going through to the SCG to play Sydney, and then of course if they win that game, they go through to the grand final at Melbourne. So there is going to be no returning to Optus Stadium for David Mundy anymore. His career may end on a win at Optus, but it may end at a loss in Victoria or New South Wales. So David Mundy, let's see what his team has for him. But Fremantle, look, they weren't great last week versus Western Bulldogs. I think more of us expected the Dockers to win big, like have a big win. But no, they had to do it the hard way, but they still did it, and it almost made for good watching. Collingwood last week, they did another thriller. Except this week except last week they got a taste of their own medicine and found out what it was like to lose a close game, because they've been the kings of the close games. But the Kings, they did end up losing their throne to the Cats. The Cats are on a 14-game winning streak and are in a home prelim. Now, of course, the winner goes on to play Sydney at the SCG, which is a tough task. So, pretty much, I'd be saying you'd want to get a pretty healthy win here at the MCG on a Saturday night. I reckon this game could go either way. I reckon it'll be a thriller just because we know Collingwood love thrillers. But will they get the taste of their own medicine and be eliminated 2 weeks in a row due to their own game? Collingwood, will they be eliminated in 2 thrillers and exit out in straight sets? I'm not going to lie though, that'd be like insane if that was to happen. Crazy. And then Fremantle get through to a prelim. Or will Fremantle go home? And look, they've had a good season. Both sides have had a really good season. This one is a 50-50 contest. I've gone with my gut instinct and said the Pies by 3. Sounds pretty boring, like a pretty boring tips, really. They're nothing special, but I just feel like the Pies will win. It is at the G. We do know the Dockers aren't too bad there, but I still just feel like, yeah, the Pies, they're just the better of the sides, and I reckon they will get back and win a close game. So there we go. Of course, I reckon both these games will be rippers. Realistically, Brisbane just have to play how Sydney did last week to beat Melbourne, and then the upset is well and truly capable of happening. And then Collingwood and Fremantle, that's just going to be a ripping game of footy, I reckon, on the Saturday night. So 2 massive games coming up in the semi-finals. My pick of which game will be the better game, I reckon it all will really depend on how Brisbane play against Melbourne, because that one definitely does have the capability of being the better game. If Brisbane do what Sydney did last week, I reckon that'll be a thriller. But before the 2 games start, Collingwood and Freo, for me, is my thriller. But, oh man, we've got a brilliant week of footy. And of course, there will be match reviews for both these games, a round review for both these games. So, yeah, there's going to be lots of content. But thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Send you guys never miss another video on the channel. Thank you guys all so much. Bye everyone. Flaming Footy out.